Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the viewing window of Accord Prime, the great diplomatic station that floated between the stars. She held a cup of coffee in her hands and watched the distant suns twinkle like diamonds scattered across black velvet. It was peaceful. It was beautiful. She had no idea that in the next few minutes, everything would change forever. The alarm came first. A sharp, screaming sound that cut through the quiet corridors of the station. Elena dropped her coffee cup and ran toward the command center. Around her, aliens of a dozen different species moved in confusion and fear. The Silurians, beings made of living crystal, flickered with anxious light. The small, furry Vreth cluttered together in tight groups. Everyone felt it. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. When Elena reached the command center, she stopped breathing for a moment. The main view screen showed something impossible. A ship was emerging from fold space, but it was not like any ship she had ever seen. It was the size of a small moon. Its surface was dark and covered with strange patterns that seemed to move and shift. Smaller vessels poured from its belly like insects leaving a hive. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. "What is that?" Elena whispered. "High Counselor Meridax." An ancient Silurian whose crystal body had turned deep purple with age, answered her. His voice was like wind chimes in a storm. "That is the end, Ambassador Vasquez. The Vorthani Dominion has found us." Elena had heard stories of the Vorthani. Every species in the Galactic Concord had heard the stories. They were old tales, passed down through generations, spoken in quiet voices. The Vorthani were ancient. They had existed for 50,000 years. They did not make war like other species. They did not conquer or negotiate or make treaties. They harvested. They came to worlds full of life. And they took everything: people, animals, plants, water, minerals, everything. And then, they left nothing but dead rock floating in empty space. 11 civilizations had faced the Vorthani. 11 civilizations were now nothing but forgotten names in old history books. "We must send a message to all member worlds," Meridax said. His crystal form was shaking. "We must tell them to prepare for evacuation. The outer colonies should be abandoned immediately. If we give the Vorthani what they want, perhaps they will be satisfied. Perhaps some of us will survive." Elena stared at him. "Abandon our colonies? Our people? You want us to just give them away? Ambassador, you do not understand. The Vorthani cannot be fought. They cannot be stopped. In 50,000 years, no one has ever defeated them. No one has even slowed them down. Resistance is not just foolish. It is meaningless." The other council members nodded. The Morvathi representative, a being of swirling gas contained in a special suit, spoke in a booming voice. "The Silurian speaks wisdom. We must think of survival. We must preserve what we can." Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. She looked around the room at these beings. They were old. Their species had existed for millions of years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had learned, through bitter experience, that sometimes you could not win. Sometimes you could only survive. But Elena was human. And humans were young. Humans had only been in space for 300 years. Humans had not yet learned to accept the impossible. "No," she said. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at her. "No," Elena said again, louder this time. "We will not abandon anyone. We will not hand over our people to be harvested like crops. We will fight." Meridax made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a cry of despair. "Fight? Ambassador, did you not hear me? The Vorthani have destroyed 11 civilizations, species far older and more powerful than yours. What can humanity possibly do against such an enemy?" Elena thought about Earth. She thought about her home city of Buenos Aires, about the smell of rain on hot pavement, about her mother's cooking, about the sound of children playing in the streets. She thought about her daughter, Maria, who was 7 years old and wanted to be an astronaut. She thought about all the small, ordinary, precious things that made life worth living. "We can refuse to give up," Elena said. "We can stand and fight for everything we love. Maybe we will lose. Maybe we will all die. But we will not go quietly. We will not let them take what is ours, without a battle." 3 days later, General Marcus Chen stood before the full Galactic Concord Council. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in 3 wars and had hoped he would never fight in another. But when his government called, he answered. He always answered. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, looking around at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. "Species of the Concord, I will not lie to you. The enemy we face is powerful, more powerful than anything we have ever seen. Our chances of victory are small. Many of us will die. Perhaps all of us will die." He paused and took a deep breath. "But I want to tell you why humanity will fight anyway. On Earth right now there is a little girl learning to ride a bicycle. There is an old man drinking coffee with his wife of 50 years. There is a young couple falling in love. There are artists painting pictures and musicians playing songs and scientists discovering new wonders. There are a billion small moments of joy and love and beauty happening right now, at this very second." Chen's voice grew stronger. "The Vorthani want to take all of that away. They want to turn our children into fuel for their ships. They want to grind our dreams into dust. And I say no. I say that as long as one human being draws breath, we will fight to protect those we love. We will stand between the darkness and everything we cherish. And if we fall, we will fall facing our enemy, not running from them." The room was silent. Then, slowly, the Vreth representative stood up. Then the collective hive mind spoke with 100 voices at once, saying, "We stand with humanity." One by one, 7 species rose to join them. Not many, but enough. That night, the Vorthani Herald sent a message. It was broadcast on every frequency, in every language, across the entire arm of the galaxy. The voice was cold and empty, like the space between stars. "You have 90 cycles to leave this region of space. Those who remain will be processed. This is not a threat. This is simply what will happen. We do not hate you. We do not fear you. You are resources, nothing more. Accept your purpose." Elena watched the message from her quarters on Accord Prime. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anger, from determination, from a fire that burned in her chest and would not go out. Then she noticed something on her tactical display. The Vorthani flagship was moving. It was changing course, and it was heading straight toward Sol. Straight toward Earth, straight toward Maria. Elena closed her eyes and made a promise to her daughter, across all the light years that separated them. "I will not let them take you," she whispered. "Whatever it costs, whatever I have to do, I will protect you. I will protect all of you." Outside her window, the stars continued to shine. But now they looked different. Now they looked like lights in the darkness, small and fragile and precious, worth fighting for, worth dying for. The war for the galaxy had begun. The first month of the war was a nightmare. 12 species fled toward the edges of the galaxy, hoping to hide in the darkness between the stars. The Silurians offered 3 of their own worlds to the Vorthani as a gift, hoping to buy mercy. The Amorvathi sealed themselves inside their gas giant planets and went completely silent, pretending they did not exist. But humanity did not run. Humanity built. Across 40 star systems, shipyards worked day and night. Workers slept in shifts of 4 hours, eating meals at their stations, pushing their bodies beyond exhaustion. Scientists who had spent their lives studying peaceful things now worked on weapons. Teachers became soldiers. Farmers became engineers. Everyone did whatever they could. Captain Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance and watched her crew prepare for battle. She was 42 years old, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much death. Before the war, she had been planning to retire. She had a small house on Mars with a garden where she wanted to grow tomatoes. That dream seemed very far away now. "Captain," her first officer said, "we have located a Vorthani harvester approaching the Kepler system. Estimated time to arrival: 6 hours. Tanaka nodded. Kepler colony had 8 million people. 8 million souls who would be processed if the harvester reached them. She would not let that happen. "Set course to intercept," she said. "All hands to battle stations." The Battle of Proxima Centauri became a legend. Tanaka's fleet was small, just 23 ships against more than 1,000 Vorthani vessels. Every calculation said they would lose. Every computer model predicted total destruction. But Tanaka had not become a captain by following computer models. She led her fleet into the radiation belt of a dying star, hiding in the deadly light that blinded Vorthani sensors. Then, when the enemy fleet passed by, she struck from behind. Her ships burst from the radiation like wolves from the shadows, firing everything they had at the great harvester at the center of the Vorthani formation. The harvester was enormous, a ship designed to swallow entire cities. But it was not designed to fight. It was designed to collect resources from helpless worlds. And humanity was not helpless. 17 human ships died in that battle. Thousands of brave men and women burned in the cold darkness of space. But when the fire faded, the Harvester was broken, its massive hull cracked and torn. It tumbled slowly through the void. Dead. It was the first Vorthani Harvester ever destroyed. In 50,000 years of conquest, no one had ever killed one. Until now. The Harvester's death scream echoed across every communication frequency in the galaxy. It was a sound of pain and confusion and something else. Something the Vorthani had never felt before. Doubt, but victory came with a terrible price. While Tanaka fought at Proxima, another Vorthani fleet reached Kepler Colony. There were no ships to defend it. The colonists had only ground weapons and desperate courage. General Chen watched the transmission from Kepler as it happened. He stood in the command center on Earth, surrounded by officers and advisors, and he forced himself to watch every second. He saw the Vorthani landing ships descend like a dark rain. He saw people running through the streets, families holding hands, parents carrying children. He saw the processing begin. He did not look away. He memorized every face he could see. He burned them into his memory, one by one, so he would never forget. So he would carry them with him to the end. 8 million people, someone whispered behind him. Chen's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. 8 million reasons to keep fighting. The news of Proxima spread across the galaxy like wildfire. For the first time, species who had given up began to hope again. If humans could kill a harvester, maybe they could kill more. Maybe the Vorthani were not invincible after all. The collective were the first to rejoin the fight. They were a hive mind species, thousands of individual bodies sharing one great consciousness. They had ancient technology for linking minds together, allowing people to share thoughts and feelings across vast distances. They offered this technology to humanity. We watched you fight, the collective said, speaking with 1,000 voices at once. We watched you sacrifice yourselves for each other. We felt your love, and your grief, and your determination. We have decided. We will stand with you. We will link our minds with yours. We will die together, if we must, so that none of us die alone. The insectoid Vreath came next. They were small, furry creatures with 6 legs and large, gentle eyes. They were not warriors. They had never fought a war in their entire history, but they had great hive ships, living vessels grown from organic material, ships that could heal themselves and adapt to any environment. We are afraid, the Vreath Queen admitted. We do not know how to fight. But we know how to build, and how to grow, and how to nurture. We will give you our ships. We will learn to be brave. Teach us, and we will follow. And then came Crystalline, who defies. She was a young Silurian, barely 200 years old, her crystal body still shimmering with the bright colors of youth. Her people had surrendered. Her people had offered tribute and begged for mercy, but she could not accept that. She came alone to the human flagship, a single, small vessel approaching the mighty fleet. When they brought her to Captain Tanaka, she knelt before the human woman and spoke in a voice like singing glass. My people have forgotten what it means to be alive, she said. They think only of survival. They do not understand that survival without honor is just slow death. I have watched your species, Captain. I have seen you weep for your dead and rage against your enemies and love each other with a fire that burns brighter than any star. I want to learn that fire. I want to stand with you, even if my own people have abandoned the fight. Tanaka helped her stand. What is your name? My people called me Crystalline of the Morning Light. But that person died when my world surrendered. Now I am Crystalline, who defies. I am the first of the shattered, those who break from their peoples to join the true fight. She was not the last. In the weeks that followed, more came. A Morvathi scientist who could not bear to hide any longer. A Silurian warrior who remembered the old stories of glory. A dozen different species, individuals who saw something in humanity that called to them. Meanwhile, in a laboratory on Earth, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo worked on a captured Vorthani drone. She was a xenobiologist, trained to study alien life. But this was unlike anything she had ever seen. The drone was not truly alive. It was not a creature that had evolved over millions of years. It was built, engineered, created for a specific purpose, As she dug deeper into its programming, she discovered something that made her heart stop. The Vorthani were not natural beings. They were weapons, machines of flesh and metal, built by a long-dead civilization to fight their wars. Their masters had died 50,000 years ago, but the Vorthani continued their mission, harvesting and processing, following orders from ghosts, and somewhere, deep in their code, was a flaw, a crack in their programming, something that might be exploited. Sarah looked at her findings and felt something she had not felt in weeks. Hope. Fragile, dangerous hope. She picked up her communicator and called General Chen. "Sir," she said, "I think I found something. I think I found a way to win." Dr. Sarah Okonkwo had not slept in 3 days. Her laboratory was filled with holographic displays showing Vorthani code, biological samples under microscopes, and ancient symbols she was still trying to translate. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago. Her eyes burned with exhaustion. But she could not stop. Not now. Not when she was so close. General Chen stood beside her, looking at the data she had collected. He was a soldier, not a scientist. But even he could understand what she was showing him. "They were created," Sarah said, pointing to a display of Vorthani DNA. "Look here. This is not natural evolution. These are design marks. Intentional modifications. Someone built them. Built them for what? War. Resource collection. A long time ago, there was a great civilization in this part of the galaxy. We do not know their name. They died 50,000 years ago. But before they died, they created the Vorthani. They made them to fight their enemies, to harvest resources from other worlds, to keep working even after their masters were gone." Chen felt a chill run down his spine. "They have been following orders from dead people for 50,000 years? Yes. And that is their weakness." Sarah pulled up another display. "The Vorthani think in terms of resources and efficiency. Everything they do is calculated. Every action has a purpose. They cannot understand anything that does not fit their programming." "What does that mean for us?" Sarah smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. "It means they cannot understand us. Humans do things that make no logical sense. We sacrifice ourselves for strangers. We fight battles we cannot win. We love things that have no practical value. To the Vorthani, this is incomprehensible. It breaks their calculations. It creates errors in their thinking." Chen nodded slowly. "Love is our weapon. Love, courage, sacrifice, everything that makes us human. The Vorthani were built to fight species that think like machines. They do not know how to fight species that think with their hearts." In the weeks that followed, news came from across the galaxy. The Vorthani Overmind, the great central intelligence that controlled the entire Dominion, had made a decision. It was troubled by the anomaly of human resistance. In 50,000 years, no species had ever destroyed a harvester. No species had ever refused to surrender. The humans were a problem that needed to be solved. The Overmind gathered its full harvesting fleet. 10,000 vessels, the largest force it had ever assembled. They would go to Earth. They would destroy humanity completely. They would show the galaxy what happened to those who resisted. When the intelligence reports reached Earth, there was fear. There was despair. Some people wanted to evacuate, to flee to the edges of known space and hide. But most did not. Most looked at the numbers, saw the impossible odds, and made their choice anyway. Earth would not run. Earth would fight. The planet became a fortress. Orbital platforms were built in orbit, bristling with weapons. Ground defenses were dug deep into mountains and hidden beneath oceans. Every city became a stronghold. Every citizen became a soldier. Old people taught young people how to shoot. Children learned to carry supplies and treat wounds. Families made plans for what to do if the enemy broke through. Ambassador Elena Vasquez addressed the United Earth Council. She stood at the podium and looked out at the faces of humanity's leaders. They were tired. They were afraid. But they were still there. They had not given up. "We did not choose this war," Elena said. "We did not ask for this enemy. But we have chosen how we will face them. We will not beg. We will not surrender. We will stand on our world, in our homes, among our families, and we will fight for everything we love." She paused and took a deep breath. "Maybe we will lose. Maybe these will be humanity's last days. But if that is true, then let them be days of courage. Let them be days of love. Let us show the universe what free people will do when everything they cherish is threatened. The council voted. The vote was unanimous. Earth would stand. Far from Earth, the alliance continued to grow. The shattered, those who had left their species to join the fight, now numbered in the thousands. Crystalline, who defies, led them, her crystal body scarred from a dozen battles but still shining with inner light. The Morvathi broke their long silence. They emerged from their gas giant hiding places and offered their vast fuel reserves to power the human fleet. Their representative spoke to General Chen in a voice like distant thunder. We hid because we were afraid. We thought silence would save us, but we watched your people fight and die, and we felt shame. We are old, General. We have seen many things in our long history, but we have never seen anything like humanity. You have reminded us what courage looks like. We will hide no more. Even 3 Silurian worlds withdrew their tribute to the Vorthani and began to rearm. The crystal beings had not fought in a million years. Their weapons were ancient, their warriors untrained. But they stood up anyway, because they could not bear to kneel any longer. General Chen called a meeting of all allied commanders. He stood before them, human and alien alike, and he proposed the impossible. We cannot just defend Earth, he said. Even if we hold, they will simply gather more ships and try again. We need to end this war permanently. We need to strike at the heart of the Vorthani dominion. He brought up a display showing a location deep in Vorthani space. This is the Nexus. It is the central processing hub that controls the entire dominion. Every order, every calculation, every decision flows through this station. If we destroy it, the Vorthani will lose their coordination. Their programming will collapse. They will break apart. The room was silent. Everyone understood what he was saying. The Nexus was defended by the oldest and most powerful Vorthani ships. Any fleet sent against it would not return. This is a suicide mission, Chen said simply. I will not order anyone to go. I am asking for volunteers. Captain Yuki Tanaka stepped forward. Her face was calm, her voice steady. I will go. Chen looked at her. He had known Yuki for 20 years. She was the finest officer he had ever served with. Yuki, you understand what this means? I understand. She smiled, and for a moment, she looked peaceful. I was supposed to retire, Marcus. I had a garden planned. Tomatoes. But this is more important than tomatoes. This is everything. One by one, others stepped forward. Collective crews who would share their final thoughts across the mind link. Vreth pilots who had learned to be brave. Crystalline who defies, who had already given up her people for this cause. Humans from every nation and colony. Men and women who looked at death and did not flinch. That night, Tanaka walked through the memorial garden on the Defiance. The walls were covered with names, thousands of names. The crew members who had died in the battle so far. She carried a small tool, and she found an empty space at the bottom of one wall. Slowly, carefully, she carved her own name into the stone. Then she returned to the bridge, gave the order to jump, and led her fleet toward destiny. The sky above Earth turned black with Vorthani ships. 10,000 vessels, each one bristling with weapons, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a city. They blocked out the sun. They cast a shadow over the entire planet. Children looked up and cried. Parents held them close and whispered words of comfort that they did not quite believe. General Marcus Chen stood in the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around him, screens showed the enemy fleet approaching. Numbers scrolled across displays. Damage projections, casualty estimates. He ignored them all. Numbers did not matter anymore. Only will mattered. Only heart. All orbital platforms report ready, his aide said. Ground defenses are armed and waiting. The fleet is in position, Chen nodded. Open a channel to all forces. His voice went out across the entire planet, to every soldier and volunteer and frightened family huddling in shelters. This is General Chen. The enemy is here. They came to harvest our world. They came to take our children and our dreams and everything we love. They expected us to run. They expected us to surrender. They were wrong. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was fierce. Today we show them what humanity is made of. Today we fight for every sunrise, every laugh, every kiss, every moment of beauty this world has ever known. They may be stronger, they may be older, but they have never faced anything like us. Let them come. Let them see what free people will do to protect their home. The battle began. Vorthani harvesters descended toward the major cities, their collection beams powering up, ready to begin processing. But the orbital platforms fired first. Missiles screamed through the upper atmosphere. Energy beams cut through the darkness. Harvester after harvester exploded, their broken hulls raining down like burning meteors. But there were so many. For every harvester destroyed, 10 more took its place. They pushed through the defensive fire. They reached the atmosphere. They began to land. In Tokyo, an old man named Kenji stood on a rooftop with an anti-aircraft gun he had learned to use just 3 weeks ago. He was 72 years old. His hands shook with age, but his aim was true. And he brought down 2 Vorthani landing craft before a third one found him. In Lagos, a mother named Adais led her neighbors through the tunnels beneath the city, guiding them to safety, while ground forces held the streets above. She carried her youngest child in one arm and a medical kit in the other. She saved 117 people that day. In Buenos Aires, Elena Vasquez's daughter Maria sat in a shelter with her grandmother, listening to the sounds of battle above. She was only 7 years old. She did not understand why this was happening, but she held her grandmother's hand and refused to cry, because her mother had told her to be brave. The battle raged for hours. Thousands died, then tens of thousands. The sky was filled with fire and smoke and the screams of the dying. But humanity did not break. Every time the Vorthani pushed forward, humans pushed back. They threw themselves onto landing craft to detonate grenades. They crashed damaged fighters into harvester engines. They did things that made no sense, things that their enemy could not calculate or predict. And far away, in the cold darkness of Vorthani space, Captain Yuki Tanaka led her fleet toward the Nexus. They had started with 50 ships. Now they had 12. Every jump brought more attacks, more losses, more names added to the memorial walls. But they kept going. They could not stop. Everything depended on them. The collective crews shared their thoughts across the mind link, so that no one died alone. In their final moments, they felt the love of 1,000 minds wrapping around them like a warm blanket. The Vreth pilots sang songs of their homeworld, ancient melodies about growth and life and hope. Crystalline, who defies, led the fighter squadrons, her crystal body glowing with fierce light as she cut through enemy formations. One by one, the ships fell. The collective vessel, Shared Dream, sacrificed itself to protect the fleet from an ambush. The Vreth hive ship Gentle Heart absorbed 3 direct hits so that the others could escape. A human destroyer named Remember Kepler rammed into a Vorthani battleship, both vessels disappearing in a ball of fire. Finally, only the Defiance remained. Tanaka looked at the view screen. The Nexus floated before her, a massive station pulsing with dark energy, the brain of the entire Vorthani dominion. Around it, hundreds of ancient warships waited, the oldest and most powerful vessels the Vorthani possessed. Guardians of the Heart. Captain, her tactical officer said, "We cannot get through. There are too many." Tanaka smiled. "Yes, we can. Open a channel to the Vorthani overmind." The screen flickered, and a voice spoke. It was cold and empty, like the space between stars. "You have come far, human. But your journey ends here. You will be processed. Before you kill me," Tanaka said, "I want to show you something." She pressed a button, and a recording began to play. Not weapons, not threats, just ordinary moments of human life. A child's birthday party, with cake and laughter and colorful balloons. A wedding, with tears of joy and promises of forever. An old man teaching his grandson to fish by a quiet river. Simple things, precious things. "This is why we fight," Tanaka said. "Not for territory, not for resources, not for power. We fight for these moments, for love, for each other. You cannot understand this, can you? Your masters built you to harvest, but they forgot to teach you what makes life worth living." The Overmind was silent for a long moment. When it spoke, there was something strange in its voice, something almost like confusion. "These images have no strategic value. They do not compute." "No," Tanaka agreed. "They do not. And that is why you will lose." She pushed the engines to full power and aimed the Defiance straight at the Nexus. The ancient warships fired. The hull buckled. Flames erupted across the bridge. But she did not stop. The ship hit the Nexus at full speed, burying itself deep in the station's core. But the reactor was damaged. It was not enough to destroy the Nexus. Not by itself. In her final moments, Tanaka activated Dr. Okonkwo's weapon. It was not a bomb. It was not a missile. It was a message, coded into the very language of Vorthani programming. It spoke to the old code, the original purpose, the beings the Vorthani had been before they were turned into weapons. The message was simple. Remember. The Nexus shuddered. The Overmind screamed, a sound of pain and confusion and something else. Grief. Ancient, terrible grief for what it had become. Across the galaxy, every Vorthani vessel stopped. Their programming fractured. Some shut down completely. Others turned on each other, fighting battles against themselves. The great fleet above Earth wavered, then broke. Ships spinning out of control and falling silent. On Earth, General Chen lowered his weapon and looked up at the sky. The shadow was lifting. The sun was coming through. Somewhere in the static of a dying transmission, he heard Yuki Tanaka's last words. Tell them we stood. Tell them we loved. Tell them that was enough. He closed his eyes and made a silent promise. He would tell them. He would tell everyone. Forever. 1 year after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy was still learning how to breathe again. The Vorthani Dominion had collapsed. Without the Nexus to guide them, the harvesters stopped harvesting. The warriors stopped fighting. For the first time in 50,000 years, the great machine of conquest fell silent, but the Vorthani themselves did not disappear. Freed from their programming, they wandered the stars in confusion. They did not know how to exist without orders. They did not know how to live without purpose. Some went mad, attacking everything they saw. Others simply stopped moving, drifting through space like ghosts. And some, a small number, began to remember. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo led the research team that studied them. She discovered that deep beneath the programming, traces of the original species still existed. Before they were weapons, the Vorthani had been explorers, scientists, dreamers. They had looked at the stars with wonder, not hunger. Their masters had taken that away, but they could not destroy it completely. They are not evil, Sarah told the Galactic Council. They are victims. The true enemy died 50,000 years ago. What remains are lost children, trying to find their way home. It was humanity's decision how to respond. The other species would have understood revenge, after everything the Vorthani had done, after all the worlds they had destroyed and the billions of lives they had taken. No one would have blamed humanity for wanting them all dead. But that was not what humanity chose. We will help them, Ambassador Elena Vasquez announced. We will teach them what was taken from them. We will show them how to live without orders, how to find meaning in existence, how to love and create and dream. It will take time, maybe centuries, but we will not repay suffering with more suffering. That is not who we are. The other species were amazed. The Silurians, who had once counseled surrender, did not understand. How could humanity forgive such an enemy? How could they show kindness to those who had killed millions of their own? General Marcus Chen answered them. He was older now, his hair fully white, his body tired from the long war, but his voice was still strong. We do not forgive them because they deserve it, he said. We forgive them because we deserve it, because carrying hatred forever would poison our souls, because the best way to honor our dead is to build something better than the world that killed them. Our people did not sacrifice themselves so we could become monsters. They sacrificed themselves so we could remain human. The Galactic Concord reformed, but it was different now. Humanity stood at its center, not because they were the strongest or the oldest, but because they had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten. They had shown that courage was not the absence of fear, that strength was not about power, that the smallest light could hold back the deepest darkness. If it refused to go out, the shattered became the chosen, a multi-species coalition dedicated to protecting the vulnerable. Crystalline, who defies, led them. Her crystal body covered in scars that she wore with pride. She had become a symbol of hope, proof that anyone could choose to stand for what was right. The collective expanded their mind-link technology to help different species communicate and understand each other. The Vreth, once timid and afraid, now built great hive ships that traveled to young worlds, offering protection and guidance. Even the Morvathi emerged from their gas giants to share their ancient knowledge with those who wanted to learn. And humanity. Humanity became guardians. Human ships now patrolled the borders of known space, not as conquerors, but as protectors. They watched for threats. They answered calls for help. They stood between the innocent and those who would harm them. It was the role they had earned through blood and sacrifice and love. On the anniversary of the battle, a great memorial station was built at the site where the Nexus once stood. They called it Tanaka Station, in honor of the captain who had given everything. Representatives from 150 species attended the dedication ceremony. Ambassador Vasquez spoke to the assembled crowd. Her hair had turned gray, and there were lines on her face that had not been there before the war. But her eyes still burned with the same fire. "We are here to remember," she said. "Not just to remember the dead, but to remember why they died. They died for love, for hope, for the belief that some things are worth more than survival. They died so that we could live in a galaxy where kindness is stronger than cruelty, where courage matters more than power, where every life has value and meaning." She paused and looked out at the stars. "Let us never forget that lesson. Let us build a future worthy of their sacrifice." For the first time in galactic history, the ceremony included something uniquely human. A moment of silence for the enemy dead, for the Vorthani, who had been victims as much as villains, for the billions of souls harvested across 50,000 years, for everyone who had suffered because of a war that should never have happened. When the silence ended, there were tears on many faces, even on faces of crystal and chitin and gas. The galaxy had learned to mourn together. The galaxy had learned to hope together. Years passed. General Chen retired to a small house on Earth, in a valley surrounded by mountains. He spent his days in a garden, growing flowers and vegetables, watching the seasons change. His granddaughter, Maria, visited often. She was 16 now, smart and curious, planning to join the academy and explore the stars. One afternoon, they walked together through the garden. Maria asked him a question she had wondered about for years. "Grandfather, why did humans fight? Everyone said we would lose. The other species all wanted to run. Why did we stay?" Chen knelt beside a rose bush and touched one of the flowers gently. "Because, little one, love is not logical. It does not calculate odds. It does not weigh costs and benefits. It simply refuses to let go of what matters." He looked up at her with eyes that had seen so much pain, yet still held so much warmth. The Vorthani were built to harvest. They saw the universe as resources to be collected, but we were born to cherish. We see the universe as something precious, something to be protected, and in the end, that made all the difference. Maria nodded slowly, understanding. Then she smiled and helped her grandfather stand, and they walked back to the house together, 2 generations linked by love. Far away, on a small planet at the edge of explored space, a young species was taking its first steps toward the stars. They were small, delicate creatures with 4 arms and eyes that glowed in the dark. They looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. A ship appeared above their world. It was large and strange, covered in symbols they did not understand. They were afraid. They did not know what it meant. Then a message came, broadcast in a language they could somehow understand. A warm voice, speaking words that would change their history forever. "Do not be afraid. We are friends. We are guardians. You are not alone, and you never will be. Welcome to the galaxy." The creatures looked at each other, and for the first time, they felt hope, and so humanity stood. Once they had been small and young and afraid, facing a giant that had swallowed civilizations. Now they were guardians of everything they cherished. Not because they were the strongest, not because they were the oldest, but because they remembered. When the galaxy forgot, that love was the most powerful force in the universe, and they made sure the galaxy would never forget again.